raised and 3-bet. I called him on both tables and then check folded one and folded the other. Here we get 3-bet. He 3-bets from the small blind in a 3-handed game. I just raised the button before. I have been playing considerable number of pots, and he gets a cold caller in the big blind. And so obviously I'm jamming this. I'm getting this in. It sucks if I'm beat. So I do make a fairly hefty raise. I think I full pot it. Looks like almost to 25, 30 bucks. It's hard for me to see what that is, so. And I time out down on table 6. And he turbo mucks, and then the other guy folds as well. And over here I time out again, and he PS Madsen doesn't bet the river, I bet. Anyways, now we get down to table 6, and I have pocket 10s, and I raise up. So we just got done playing the pocket, the ace-king hand over here, where we 4-bet 3-handed. And now he's going to squeeze. And I have an opportunity to re-squeeze, but there's just, I feel like he wasn't going to do this light. Yes, these players that are regulars are kind of, well, they're slow sometimes, and they will do this play. And just with no thought of the consequences or how it's going to be played out, just like, well, you beat me on this table, I'm going to beat you on that table. Then I looked and saw that he was from Bulgaria. And so then I really wanted to raise. But I went with my gut instinct and decided to flat call, feeling like this was a setup hand. Especially after the pot we just played, I really felt like, he was expecting me to 4-bet. If he's expecting me to 4-bet, then I shouldn't 4-bet without a better hand than 10s. He c-bets, and it looks like he's really strong here because it looks like he made it. He c-bet a small enough amount so that Martian here could reship, as I point out there and I'm talking about. And so Martian didn't ship, and now he checks it back, and I hate my bet sizing here. I think it's way too big. It says that I have way too strong of a hand, and I think that he's dumping queens and jacks to it. And I have to keep queens and jacks into this pot because I am crushing them. So I think I should have bet about 30. Would have been a much better bet than 41.50. However, this does look a lot bluffier. And so, I mean, there is always that. And he check jams, and I'm, well, we get it in ever so slightly bad. And so we had all of one out going to the river, and we missed. That's fine, it's a cooler. I was just happy that, I was actually really happy after that hand because I did make the correct read pre-flop, and I really, want to go with it. Now, after losing that big pot there, I was kind of a little bit gun shy. There's nothing wrong with playing a little bit slow sometimes. This is half slow playing. Oh, he's from Denmark. I did not notice that. I was looking at his notes. But, so I play this really passively and really slow, and it probably cost me the hand. I'm ruining the surprise, aren't I? Well, guys, I lose the hand. I actually really think that I should have called the river here. I don't mind not check raising the flop. It kind of gives away that I'm I actually think I'm even check raising. I think I'm still only repping 4s, 5s, 7s, 8s, 9s, maybe pocket 6s. So I think I still have a pretty wide range when I check raise here because he could have a wide range. But he was under the gun technically 4-handed. And his c-bet stats aren't that high. It's like 62%. I don't think that's that high. He checks back the turn, and then the river comes. And I'm really thinking that I should have called this on a different hand that we didn't see, and then he immediately left. I didn't remember that. Anyways, we'll talk about that other hand after this hand. So I 3-bet pocket jacks here against Compa, and he... this is right when he started playing back at me a little bit, and he hadn't quite started to do it yet, but I mean, I know that ace-queen hand was still in his mind, and he really never should have lost that pot, and he knows it. I don't know how he managed to not jam the flop. It seems really skittish. He's playing with 200 big blinds, but still skittish. I think the biggest strength you can have is not being afraid to stick it in for 200 big blinds a little bit light sometimes. It's really hard to play against that because you have other people afraid to put their money in. Here, we check back this card because he did raise his flush draw there last hand. I didn't expect him to do it this time because raising it up there was out of character for him. And so then he does bet when the flush card gets there. And his bet sizing here is actually exactly what I would expect for him to bet from a flush. However, due to the recent pots that we had played together, I felt like he had a a more likely chance of being bluffing. I also felt like there was some hands like pocket threes, pocket sevens. Some of those hands, maybe pocket nines or pocket eights. Some of those hands that he would have turned into really thin value slash a bluff here. I don't know what you would consider it. And so I decided that I couldn't find a fold button, not heads up, and not with his current state of affairs. And I don't think there's any value in raising the river, and I don't think that I needed to donk out any of those streets that I check called on, as obviously I showed up and made the most profit. But even against his range, I think that he folds the turn with a lot of his range. I have all the jacks in my hand, so I mean, what could he possibly have? That's going to call 2 barrels in a 3-bet pot. Except for slow play pair of like queens or better. So now here, feeling my oats again after losing a big pot, winning a big pot, I I jam, which I remember talking about this, and I'm like, oh, let's go ahead and make another mistake. So I jam and get snap called by ace jack suited from I only had 2 hands on him, but he was playing 100 to 100, and some guys can come down and they'll play a little bit crazy. I don't know if this is the hand that we talk about or not. Ah, yes, this one's hilarious. So, raise my button. Completely standard, I feel. And at this point in time, I've been starting to realize that people have a lot wider ranges than what I think that they have been having. I've been used to people showing up with a lot stronger hands, and these are a lot more mediocre situations where people have trash a lot. I also had a gut shot and backdoor flush draw. In position, I bet a fairly standard size of c-bet for me. Maybe that is a little bit small. I think I probably would have bet 4 had I had a king. Now the turn comes, and I barrel again because I figure he's floating me probably pretty wide here. He doesn't have to put me on a king to still have no outs against me. And so now I just decided to give up on the hand. I'm like queen jack, ace queen, jack 9. All of these hands got there. The only hand, I mean, 8-9 is the only hand that I could conceivably fold out. Maybe ace 9. I don't know how the ace 9 gets the river. And so I check back, and he actually had 7-8 of diamonds to have the backdoor flush draw to go with his gut shot. Floating the flop nonetheless with unders and a gut shot. It's nothing I would recommend. Now here is an example of why we don't play fancy. You're going to see me miss out on about $30 of equity, of equity. We see bet flop top pair, and I flop so huge that I don't really care what he has, and he was infinitely aggressive, and so I bet $3.50 it looks like into 15. Now this isn't terrible. However, I think most of his hands are not going to be calling there. I mean, most of his hands are going to be like, I kind of expected him to raise what I was trying to get him to do. For some reason he didn't. I think this is because this looked fishy. It looked like the nuts. He smelled it as the nuts. Even somebody playing 67-33 understood that this was probably the nuts. And that's why I don't like this bet. Maybe if I didn't have it, but then once again, if I don't have it, they're going to call down so light. Let's say I had like Jack 10 here of like hearts. Yeah, they're going to call down super light, and they're probably going to be good. You know, even like with their like, maybe they'll call down with an 8 or a 6 or a 5, or an 8's hard for them to have, but if they had 7-8, they'd probably still end up calling this river bet. And he ends up having ace queen offsuit. And so if I would have just bet large, he probably would have shifted the flop, or I could have gotten it on the turn, which he's not folding the turn, or the river. Like one of those streets I could have gotten it in. I could have even done the c-bet big, check back, and then bet river for a ship. So after getting fancy play syndrome myself on this one, I get FPS on this one too. And the reason for this is he's been calling a lot of 3-bets, and I had to assume that he was in position. I had to assume he was doing that to make a play on me. Well, my plan backfires, and now I have to check back the turn, which I didn't really put that card in his range very often. And then the river comes. I actually felt like some kind of a gut shot or a 2-pair hand here, like 9-7, 6-7 was the most likely ways that I'd be beaten, and he ends up showing up pocket 7s. So I FPS'd myself right into losing another pot, another $20 I didn't have to lose.